Hey guys, it's Pi here with another Just Mechanics guide to the Phantom Palace Abyssal Dungeons. The first Abyssal is Hall of the Twisted Warlord and isn't too difficult, although there are a few white mechanics for each boss, so you're gonna have to get these right. The first boss is actually two bosses at once. You'll be fighting a rook and a bishop. Honestly, this fight is pretty simple and there's only one attack to watch out for, although it does happen twice and has a variation the second time. As you progress through the fight, a rook will put a target over all the players' heads as the bishop charges up her white mechanic. After a second, the target will go away on all players but one. This player will have to position themselves behind the bishop so the rook's attack hits the other boss. This will interrupt the wipe and allow you to continue the fight. In order to avoid getting in the way of the targeted player, if you are given the AoE around you, it's best to stay off to the side to give your teammate the room needed to properly execute this. The second time this happens, a bunch of smaller rooks will spawn in a circle to protect the bishop. Just destroy the ones blocking the bishop from the rook and then get out of the way so the player with the target can again get behind the bishop and use the rook's attack to interrupt the wipe. After you do these two mechanics, the only thing to keep in mind is if you kill one boss before the other, the remaining one will become enraged, so be sure to kill them at the same time or finish the remaining one off right away before they enrage and do more damage. The second boss fight might seem a bit intimidating at first, but it's actually pretty easy after the nerfs. Similar to some of the encounters you've had in the past, it's best to pick a position, north, south, east, or west, and decide a party order before the encounter. During this fight, you'll come across a stagger check. Once you complete this, you will get to do free damage on the boss. If you do enough damage while the boss is staggered, you will trigger the second phase of the fight. However, if you don't, the second phase might just be delayed by a minute or two, until you've done enough damage. The boss will teleport to the middle of the room. You'll want to get to your positions as he is doing this because he's about to spawn the swords for his mechanic. Once in the middle, he will spawn 4 swords that will chase after all the players. If this sword touches a player, the rest of the party will get a debuff called Phantom Cut that lasts for a few seconds or until you grab a sword. If players get this debuff and attack the boss at the same time, they can cause a wipe. If 2 swords bump into each other, the party will wipe. If 3 stacks of Phantom Cut are applied to the party, they will take damage and die, and if you don't meet the stagger, the party will wipe. To successfully perform this mechanic, 2 players will have to take their swords and immediately jump onto the boss and do stagger damage as the other 2 players run their swords clockwise to avoid being in each other's way and wait for the debuff to wear off. After the debuff from these first 2 players wears off, the second set of players can grab their swords and also join on the stagger check. The biggest thing to look out for here is to be aware of when your party members have the debuff active, and to make sure the second pair of players only grab their sword when the debuff is no longer active. This is made clear with a large purple flash on screen when someone grabs the sword, and is also shown over the party health bars to the left side of the screen, which is a really useful way to make sure you are good to take your sword. After the stagger check, you may encounter both of these 2 mechanics again throughout the fight, but just repeat the process until you beat the boss. The second Abyssal, Hildebrandt Palace, has a lot of mechanics, but don't worry, they are all pretty simple and have also been made a little easier to coordinate through the nerfs they implemented. The first fight of this dungeon has the same red means bad as always, but it does have one mechanic that won't wipe the party but can definitely one-shot any party member caught in it. At a certain point in the fight, the boss will spawn a bunch of mirrors around the battlefield. After a short delay, she will also spawn a wave at one side of the arena. What needs to be done is simply select the mirror that corresponds to the color of one of the mirrors on the side of the battlefield where the wave started. She will usually do this mechanic with one wave vertically and one horizontally, so just be ready after the first one and don't commit to any long animations. Once you are safe on the other side and she has completed her second wave, you can start doing damage again. You may run into this move more than once, but really that's it for her and you should be able to melt her after this mechanic. The last boss of this dungeon is a lot more involved and has 3 main mechanics you'll want to know. After some time fighting, she'll change the perspective of the camera and tilt the battlefield in what's been called a Fall Guys minigame. Players will have to avoid taking damage from the boss and getting stunned by the giant purple balls until one of the party members gets a red circle under them. The player who gets this circle has to get right near the boss in order to call down an asteroid that hits the boss and brings the fight back to normal. This phase won't end until a party member successfully manages to do this, so you're best not to get stunned if you get the red circle. She will do this phase twice, but they are identical mechanics both times, so try to make them short to make her move into the next phase, and from there just deplete her health bar. Once you deplete her health, you will then be taken to a second battle area where the first phase is a normal fight with 3 stagger checks involving the fire elemental. Make sure you have your stagger abilities and whirlwinds up for these, as they are a wipe if you fail. After these 3 stagger checks comes the mechanic that I've seen the most people struggle on in matchmaking. 3 players will be given a ranged weapon they will then have to aim at the player with an X on them. This will then call down a giant AoE that the players will then have to move out of. If however you fail to do this, all players get frozen in place and it does wipe the party. Now where people struggle is actually aiming at the player with an X after moving away, but a trick to this is to use your auto attack button on the player after you move a little distance away. For me, it's right mouse button, but it may be different for you. This will automatically swing you back in the direction of the player with an X, and as long as you aren't too close or too far away, you'll get it every time. This mechanic also happens twice, but once you do it successfully both times, you can just continue like a normal fight until the boss is dead. And congrats, that's both of the Abyssals, just mechanics. If this video helped you at all, or you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing for more Lost Ark videos and dropping a like or comment under this one. I also stream almost every day on Twitch at twitch.tv/Pytato, where you can get tips, builds, and news live and before any videos here. Thank you. Peace out.